Hey everybody, welcome to our live crochet event. My name is Brenda KB Anderson. I am a crochet instructor and also a crochet designer. And today I want to share with you my new favorite project. It's these crochet heart mini pouches. So I made them in all these beautiful pastel or rainbow colors that I think look so cute together. But of course you could just make one. But after you make one, it's going to be hard not to make more. But the best thing about this is it takes a small amount of yarn, a small amount of time, and like it's instant gratification, you guys. It's a very fun project, and it makes a really awesome gift, especially for Valentine's Day, which is coming up. Okay, so let me I just want to have a little parade of my pouches here. So these, this one doesn't have any writing on the top of it yet. I haven't decided what I'm going to write on the purple one, but they do have these little clips. Okay, so you can clip it onto a bag or, hang it on a hook or whatever you want to do with it. But you have that little clip, and then on the back side, we have a little zipper to open up, and then you can, fill it with candy or a little note or whatever it is that you want to give to your Valentine's this year. So, or keep for yourself also. And so I had some fun writing some funny things on these pouches that just kind of made me laugh, and I want to share them with you just to give you some ideas. But you definitely do not have to write the same phrases I do. Just keep that in mind. You can write whatever, like an inside joke or something funny, or something, ask kids or grandkids for suggestions of what what they would put on them, and you'll get some funny answers, I'm sure. But this one, you got Riz, just in case there are people out there who are like, what are you talking about? What is that? My children had to explain this to me. I don't even think I knew what this was until about a year ago. Riz is just short for charisma. Now I'm probably making it like the most uncool thing by actually explaining that. But I just wanted to tell you guys in case you didn't know what it meant. That's what it is. You got Riz. And then Goat, the greatest of all time, of course. And then here we have my snarkier hearts. We got Nope and Ew, No, and As If. Okay, so these are just some little things to get you started, little suggestions, but of course keep in mind you can write whatever you want. The letters on here, those are done with a chain stitch embroidery, which I'm going to be showing you guys. So, but it's not as tricky as you might think, and these are pretty fast to make. And it's a good, I would say, slightly advanced beginner, or maybe just middle road beginner. Like, you should have a few projects in. You should be comfortable holding your hook and making single crochet stitches. Basically, these are mostly done with single crochet stitches. So. And then the rest, I'm going to be showing you all of this. So even if you haven't crocheted much before, I'm going to try to make it accessible to you. So I did put a link in. I should mention there is a free pattern download, of course, with all of the instructions, everything you need to know, plus some tutorial pictures on the inside, just in case you have trouble remembering certain parts. Some little cheat sheets. I'll go into that a little more later. But this is free for everybody. And in this, I have exactly what yarns, what colors of those yarns I used. I also have a link to this little clasp. You could use any clasp, but I just thought these were kind of special because they're that little heart shape. And it comes in a bag, which is quite a few of them. Maybe I don't know, it's under $10. I can't remember how much it was when I bought it, but for me, I knew I was going to make a whole bunch of these, and so I just thought I might as well just order a bag of them so that I have a whole bunch, and I'll probably use them for other things. But I did put a link for this just because it's kind of a little unusual item. So you guys could take a look at it closer up and then see what it is. You can, of course, use like a carabiner. You could use a different kind of hook, whatever you like to attach to your project. And we'll get a little bit more into that, how to attach it and all that stuff later on in the tutorial. But I just want to let you know that's in there in case you're wondering about that. So you'll be needing, let's see, 65 yards or about 59 meters or so of I'm using an acrylic worsted weight yarn, but you could use wool, you could use cotton, you could use any kind of worsted weight yarn. If you're wondering if you can substitute with a different yarn weight, you absolutely can. You're just going to end up with a different size because you still want to crochet this up so that it's a pretty firm gauge. Let me just show you what this looks like. So this fabric, you can see it's pretty stiff when I crochet it up. And the reason is, we want it to be a nice, stiff, sturdy heart, so it's not going to get all curled up when it's hanging from things. And it really keeps its shape even if you're stuffing it completely full of chocolate, which is what I want to do. So, you know, just so you know, the main thing here is if you use a worsted weight yarn, you're going to want to stitch it up and check your gauge only for the feel of your fabric. You don't have to get the exact gauge I used. It doesn't have to turn out exactly the same size as the hearts that I'm making. Although I did include a way to check your gauge in the pattern in case you want to like compare it to mine and make sure that it's, you know, turning out about the same. So that is in there also. But I really wanted this project to be like a fun project. You could go stash diving and grab a little chunk of yarn and stitch along with me and not get all stressed out about making a gauge swatch and all that kind of stuff. Because if you guys have watched my tutorials before, you know how much I don't love making gauge swatches. So I'm always trying to worm my way out of making those. So hopefully there's some of you guys who sympathize with me and appreciate that I like to do that. So anyway, yeah, so you're just going to need like 65 yards of some kind of worsted weight yarn. I like acrylic and wool because it's easier on my hands. Cotton would work just fine. It's just a little bit, you know, to get a nice stiff gauge, you're going to have to, you know, your hands might feel a little tight and you might need to take a little break. But that's, you know yourself, so that may be fine for you. And I'm using a G hook, which is a 4mm hook, but you can use any size hook that gets you a good firm fabric that you like the look of and you like the shape and size that it's turning out. So we already talked about the clasp, and then you will need a little bit of embroidery floss. So I really like using a dark pink or red or burgundy or something like that. But of course you could use black, any kind of color that's going to show up well on whatever color heart it is you're making. Just make sure it's nice and contrasty so people can read those words really well. Unless you don't want them to read them really well, then make them only slightly contrasting. So it can be your little secret words. Also, you're going to need a zipper. So I think I put a link to the zippers I had purchased. Let me see. I did. I did have a link for some very short zippers. I learned that you could buy zippers, very short zippers, in a little bag with an assorted amount of colors in it. So you can go ahead and do that. But I am also going to show you in this tutorial how to shorten a zipper, because little short zippers, I mean, unless you order them specifically to be little short zippers, you might just not have one on hand. It might be harder to find in your craft shop. So I want to make sure you know how to do that. Yeah, so we'll be talking more about zippers, but it can be a separating zipper or a non-separating zipper. Just in case you're wondering what a non-separating zipper is, separating means when you unzip it like this, the two pieces completely come apart. Okay, so it'd be like on a jacket or something where you'd want them to completely separate. A non-separating zipper, of course it looks like it separates, but it doesn't completely separate. The two pieces just stay stitched together. So, you know, we are going to be treating this as a non-separating zipper, but you can always use any separating zipper and stitch the bottom closed. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the zipper section in this project, but it doesn't matter. It just needs to be long enough for the opening in the heart. So I think it's about 3 to 4 inches. Let's see, yeah, between 3 to 4 inches. And we'll talk about shortening zippers, so you don't need to worry about getting it exact. Excuse me. Okay, got some dry air. So it's making my throat itchy a little bit, a little tickly. Thanks for all the hellos, you guys. Excuse me. We've got hellos from Dawn and Tanya and Londa. And Susan is excited to make these. Destiny says, these look so cute. Can't wait to get to it. Awesome, you guys. I'm so glad you guys are here. All right. Oh, yeah. And Phyllis is asking if we can do that with cotton too, just in case you joined after I talked about that. Yes, you can definitely use cotton. Crocheting it at a dense gauge, though, maybe a little bit hard on your hands, so just take breaks if you need it, but you can absolutely use cotton if you want. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just reading your comments. Oh, you guys are so positive. Thank you guys so much for all your compliments and comments. I appreciate that. If you guys have any questions about what I'm doing, or if you have suggestions for future events, any other advice you want to give other crafters, definitely put that in the chat. I appreciate you guys. It's always nice to be seeing your comments coming through. I feel like you're actually here with me crocheting, which is really awesome. Okay. Oh, and we have someone chiming in about the hardware, and it's $6.49 for a pack of 20. Okay, awesome. I thought it was somewhere around $6, but I couldn't quite remember. Okay. All right, so we're going to start out at the bottom. Okay, let me just back up for a second. When we make these hearts, we're making a front piece and a back piece, and then we're going to crochet around each of the pieces, and then we're going to crochet them together. There is very little sewing going on here, with the exception of sewing our zipper in and also the chain stitch embroidery, which we're going to be using an embroidery needle and embroidery floss for. So, the rest of it is all just crocheted together, so you don't have to worry about that. And I will be walking you through how to put the zipper in, and it's a very short zipper. So if you guys have any fear of zippers and you like to avoid projects because of the zippers, you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there who feel that way. And this project for me was just a great way to showcase a tiny little zipper so you can dip your toe in and then, figure out good ways to attach your zippers to your crochet projects, and then you can bring that into other projects, right? That knowledge that you can learn from this. I really love my method of teaching is I like to design things that I think people might get excited to make, like because I'm excited to make, and then kind of bring you in and then teach you other skills along the way while we're making that thing, because I just feel like it's a good way to get just kind of excited about crochet. So I snuck this little zipper in there. I actually was considering doing some other sort of button or something like that, but I really wanted to fill this with candy and I didn't want my candy spilling all over in my bag. And I thought, you know what? The zipper's so tiny. This is like the perfect introduction to putting a zipper into a crochet project. So even if that scares you a little bit, just hear me out when we get to it. It's not going to be as bad as you think. This is a very easy project to insert a zipper into. Okay, so we're going to start out. We're just going to be starting out with one single crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a slip knot on our hook. We're starting at the very bottom of the heart, and we're going to chain 2. So 1 and 2. So that first row, this is secretly a row, is just us going to be putting our crochet hook into the second chain from the hook. Okay, so here's the first chain, there's the second chain. And I really like to work into the bottom of my chain. You don't have to, you can work into whatever part of the chain you want to. We're going to go ahead and just, the bottom of the chain means if you look at the top of the chain, you can see those V's. So there's a V here and a V there. And if you turn those over so they're touching the table, you can see that there's little horizontal dashes on the backs of your stitches. We're going to go underneath that horizontal dash. Now that is how I like to start out most of my projects when I'm working into a foundation chain, because it just makes it look a little neater and tidier, but you can do it however you like. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook there. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And that is our first single crochet. All right, so the top of our single crochet is that little V just to this side of the loop on our hook. Okay, right there, there's the top of our stitch. So now we're going to work in turned rows, and I know this is tiny and it seems a little ridiculous at this point, but we're going to chain 1, so we just yarn over and pull that through. That's a chain 1. Then we're going to turn our work, so we're just flipping this over so you can see the other side. We're going to work into the top of that stitch. That's where that little V is. So we're going to make 3 single crochets. So we insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to work 2 more single crochets into that very same spot. There's the second one, and here's the third one. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now you can see there's 3 V's on top of our work. That's 1, 2, and 3 stitches. So that's going to be where we're going to work on the next row. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work just like we're turning a page in a book, tiny little page. And now on this row, we're going to start with a half double crochet. Now there are a few half double crochets thrown in here. It's just to help the sides of this triangular shaped bottom of the heart grow at a nice rate so that it's nice and flat. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. If you would prefer to do single crochets instead of the half double crochets, you can certainly substitute those. If you're like, I just don't want to learn a new thing, that's fine. But half double crochets are really easy. You just yarn over, insert into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 3. That's just ever so slightly taller than a single crochet. Now we're going to do a single crochet into the same stitch we just worked. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. In our next stitch, we're just going to do a single crochet. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then the following stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we're going to do a half double crochet into that same spot. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. All right, so we've already completed 3 rows so far, and you can see it's starting to grow. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And on this row, we're just going to do single crochets. So we're going to start with 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and single crochet into the next 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 single crochets into that last stitch, 1 and 2. Now we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're never working into those chain 1s. They just are sort of like a ladder to get up to the next row, just so you know. So we're not ever going to work into that stitch. And now we're going to do a half double crochet and then a single crochet into that first stitch, and then a single crochet into each of the next 5. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 stitches. There should be 1 stitch left, and then which sometimes is a little hard to see, but I can see that V right there. So we're going to work a single crochet into that last stitch, and then a half double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1, turn our work. So far we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So this is row number 6. We're going to do 2 single crochets into the first stitch, 1 and 2, and then a single crochet into each of the next 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we have 2 single crochets into the last stitch. 1 and 2. We're going to chain 1 and turn. So we should have a total right now of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches across. All right? So we're going to chain 1 and turn. And just in case you're following along in your pattern, you know, we started here, the heart front, and then we're going through all of these rows right here. That's where we're at. We just finished with 11 stitches. So just in case you're newer to reading patterns, this little number in italics at the end of the row, that's telling you how many stitches you should have after you've worked across that row. That's what that little number is in italics at the end. Just, you know, it's not part of the instructions. It's more like a checkpoint, like, oh, you just did 2 single crochets into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 7, 2 single crochets into the next stitch. You have 11 stitches. You've worked 11 across that row. It's just a way to help you keep track of where you're at. Okay, so now we're on row 7. We're going to do a half double crochet and a single crochet. And then we're going to do 9 stitches in single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we're going to do a single crochet and a half double crochet in the very last stitch. And now we have 13 stitches across. So far we have been, you know, with the exception of the very first row where we literally did 1 single crochet. After that, we've been increasing 1 stitch on each end of every single row. Okay, so you've got 2 stitches increased per row, 1 at each end, if that makes sense. But at this point, we're going to slow down our increases just a little bit because otherwise our heart would just be really wide and kind of angular when we do the next step. It's kind of hard to explain, but we're kind of curving the sides of our heart now at this point. So instead of doing an increase every single row, it's going to be every other row, just for a few rows. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and row number 8, we're just working a single crochet into each stitch across. Okay, so here's row number 8, single crocheting each stitch across. There should be a total of 13 stitches. So this row has no increases. It's just going to be the same stitch count as last stitch count, or the last row, sorry. Okay, so we finished row 8. We're going to chain 1 and turn. And on row number 9, we're going to do a half double crochet and a single crochet into that first stitch. There's our half double crochet and a single crochet. And we're going to single crochet into each of the next 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we're going to finish with a single crochet and a half double crochet in the end. And our next row is 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So if you're newer to crochet and you have a hard time telling where to put your hook, or especially on the beginnings and the ends of our rows, I would recommend just placing a stitch marker in the very first stitch that you do. So like here was our first stitch. We're going to place a stitch marker in that very first stitch. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention we need some stitch markers or some way to mark some sections around our heart later. So a little handful of stitch markers would be good. Otherwise, if you don't have stitch markers, you can use safety pins, bobby pins, hoop earrings, little tiny piece of yarn, whatever, we'll get to that later. But if you are newer to crochet, stitch markers are invaluable because they'll help you keep your place, and it will keep you from they really do help you not to make so many mistakes. It's inevitable, everyone's gonna make mistakes, but they do really help kind of keep you on track. So if you're having trouble telling where the first and last stitches are of the row, just put a stitch marker in as soon as you do that first stitch. Okay, so we've got 2 stitches so far, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 stitches. All right, so we just finished row number 10. So row number 11, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and then we're going to do a half double crochet followed by a single crochet in that very first stitch. So 2 stitches in the first stitch, and then we're going to single crochet across till there's 1 stitch left, and then we'll finish up with a single crochet and a half double crochet at the opposite side. So on every other row here in this pattern so far, we are doing 1 half double crochet on the end. And the reason that we do that is because, as you can see, this is a diagonal, so it's the distance from here to here on a row is a little longer than from here straight up in that same row. And so that really helps us keep our piece from, if they were just single crochets on the end, it would be kind of looking a little bit like this, which is fine. And you can block that out. And so like I said before, if you want to substitute those half double crochets with single crochets, you can certainly do that. And a lot of patterns are written that way. I just like to do those half double crochets on every other row to just kind of help it not to distort as much there on those diagonals, those diagonal edges there. That's why we're doing it. All right, so there's our single crochet and there's our half double crochet. And now we have a total of 17 stitches, and we've just completed row number 11. So for rows number 12 through 16, we're just going to chain 1, turn, and work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. Okay, so rows number 12 through 16, that is a total of 5 rows of working even. Working even just means you're putting 1 stitch into each stitch that comes up. You're just going to work back and forth. And your piece will look like this one, okay? When you're done with row number 16. So in our pattern, we are here at this section on page number 4 that says first lobe. The lobes are the little bumps on the heart. I don't really know how else to designate that, but that's what I'm calling them. So we're gonna start out with the chain 1, turning our work, and we're gonna single crochet into the first 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we're going to leave the remaining stitches unworked, okay? We're going to consider this as finishing row number 17. Then on row number 18, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and then we are going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So there should be also 8 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I gotta catch up with all your comments, you guys. Hang on here. Let's see. Where are we at? Hello to Beverly and Belle again. Hi. Belle was with me earlier when I made a little Valentine's Day headband. That was a knitting project for the Knitting Circle. Oh, and Molly likes the heart clasp. Thanks, Molly. Alyssa says, hi, look forward to learning how to see my way out of magic loop. Oh, yeah. I got 5 rows in and can't see where I'm at. Okay. Are you having trouble counting your rows, Alyssa? Let me know. Okay, and Susan says, is this pattern printable? Having a hard time getting it up on the screen along with this live. Yes, it is a printable PDF. So you should be able to download the PDF and print it out. Yes, definitely. Oh, and Cindy's making these for her granddaughter's friends. Perfect for teens. Yeah, awesome. Oh, and Susan's making the Bonita project bag. That was one of my first projects that I did for the Creative Crochet Corner. That was a very popular project. It was a bunch of granny squares. It was a really fun one, especially if you want to use up some scraps. And Thrifty Crocheter says, good morning to everyone. And Lorraine says, hi from Westchester, New York. You crochet and knit exactly like me. It's so easy for me to follow along with you. Thank you for your tutorials. Oh, thanks, Lorraine. I appreciate that. And I'm sure you know, since you've seen me knit, that I'm a continental knitter. But for those of you who don't know, there's many different ways to knit. But kind of the 2 basic camps, I am in one camp, and I'm trying to teach myself how to do the other way, which is English style, which is throwing. And I'm not very good at it yet, but I am learning because I really want to be able to switch back and forth between both styles so people can visualize themselves doing it a little easier. And hi to Heidi. Oh, and I have a compliment on my sweater, the stitches in my sweater. So those are extended single crochet, one of my favorite stitches of all time, you guys. I've designed lots of things with extended single crochet. If you're interested in the sweater, actually, there is a class for it on the Creative Crochet Corner website, also on Craftsy. It's called the Felicity Raglan sweater, but I think the class is just called like Easy Top-Down Crochet Sweater or something like that. Can't really remember the name of it, but I'm literally wearing this sweater in the picture, so you'll recognize it. Okay, so back to this. We've already gone through row number 17 and 18. Those are just partial short little rows here. Now on number 19, we're going to start our decreases to shape the top of this heart. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do something called a single crochet 2 together. It's abbreviated right here, SC 2 together. So that means we insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we're going to do that in the next stitch as well. We're going to insert into the following stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. And we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So where we had 2 stitches before, now we just have 1. So that's a decrease. That means the edges of our fabric are going to start pulling in a little bit here. Then we're going to do a single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then here we have 2 more stitches left at the end, and we're going to do another single crochet 2 together. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 3. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. You should only have 6 stitches left now, and we're going to do basically the same thing again. So we're going to do a single crochet 2 together, and then we're going to do a single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then another single crochet 2 together right here. And then we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to do 2 single crochet 2 together right in a row. So here's the first one, and here's the second one. And then we'll put a stitch marker right at the top of that first decrease of this last row that we did, like right in that first stitch. We just did 2 stitches. So in stitch number 1 there, we're putting a stitch marker. And we're doing that because later on we're going to be stitching all the way around the edges, and I divide up those sections for you guys so you can kind of space your single crochets evenly. It isn't ultra important, really. You just need to crochet around the border, but it does make it a little simpler when you're putting 2 pieces together if they have exactly the same number of stitches and they're spaced evenly. It makes it a lot easier to sew. So that's why we're doing that. And then we're just going to cut off our yarn and pull that through. And then we're going to start on lobe number 2, the second lobe. So we're going to pull up our loop. Oh, I think I may have, let's see, did I have you put a stitch marker there when we did 17 and 18? Oh yeah, we did. I skipped that part. So when we did that first partial row, I instruct you in the directions to just skip a stitch and put a stitch marker right here. So as we worked that very first shortened row, we work those 8 stitches, skip that stitch, and put a stitch marker into the next stitch. And the reason that I have you do that is just so that there's no wondering where you're supposed to pull up your yarn from. But really, if you just look at the stitches that were used, there should be another stitch right here. The following stitch is where you're going to pull up your yarn from. Okay, so that marked stitch, I'm going to pull that out and insert my yarn here, or insert my hook here. I'm just going to pull up a loop of yarn like that. And then I'm going to just make a little chain. And that doesn't count as a stitch or anything. It's just anchoring my yarn in place. And now we're going to work into that very same stitch and do a single crochet. And we're going to single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. And I really like to crochet over this yarn tail, meaning trapping it in my stitches, because that way later I don't have to weave that in. But, you know, if that bugs you or if it feels like that's too much to keep track of, don't worry about it. Just let it hang. We can deal with it later. And we've got 2 more stitches left here, 1 and 2. All right, so you should have a total of 8 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to do 8 single crochets on the next row. Okay, 1 in each stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now this is exactly the same as what we just did over here. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. So now we've got 2 rows where we work those 8 stitches this way and then 8 stitches back. And now we're going to start our decreases. So we're going to do a single crochet 2 together, and then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now there's 2 stitches left. Another single crochet 2 together at the end. Chain 1, turn our work, single crochet 2 together, single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and single crochet 2 together. Just like that. Chain 1 and turn, single crochet 2 together, single crochet 2 together. Just like that. Okay? So we are almost done with the front piece of our little pouch, but we're going to do a round of single crochet, and this is going to tidy it up and make it easier for us to crochet our 2 pieces together. So if you take a look in your pattern, I tell you how to divide up your heart here with stitch markers just to kind of make things into certain sections, and then you'll know how many stitches to place into each section. So basically what you're doing is you're going to place a stitch marker. If you look at where this indents here, you're just going to place a stitch marker over on the side, and then you're going to place another stitch marker over on this side. And then, let me grab a couple more stitch markers here. In this picture, I'm showing you, oh, and also you can put a stitch marker at the bottom. I think I might be missing, oh no, I can grab this stitch marker here. I thought I forgot a stitch marker. Okay, so we're gonna put a stitch marker right on the tip of the heart. Okay, and now we're gonna divide this section from here to here in half. So we can just eyeball that. And put a stitch marker there. And then we're going to put a stitch marker over here. So the distance between here to here, you can just, you can fold it in half and find the center, or you can just eyeball it. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you can see, you can kind of check it. If you look at where this stitch marker is and follow all those little dashes across, there's a stitch marker there. So you know it's pretty even, okay? So now on the next page, I have these little numbers. They might be a little tricky to see on the video, but in your download, there's numbers right here in little sections along the edges of the heart. So 4, 4, 8, 7, 3, 4, 8, 4, 3. And then I have 2 arrows saying 2 single crochets into each of these 2 remaining stitches, single crochet into each of these 2 remaining stitches. The remaining stitches are talking about the stitches that we, like, after we fastened off. There's a stitch there, a stitch there, a stitch there, and a stitch there. So I'm going to show you how to do this, but just know that you have that reference to look at. So later, if you can't remember how many stitches go where, you can just easily look at the picture, place your stitches in where they go. But also the other thing to remember is really you can just single crochet all the way around it. And then when you put your 2 pieces together, you'll just have to kind of make sure your heart isn't shifting when you're stitching those together. I'll explain this a little bit more as we're stitching them together, like why I like to do it this way, but there's lots of different ways to do things. So if you feel like this is just too much to divide it and put all your stitches in places and it's annoying, you don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. All right, so from this point, we're going to do 4 single crochet stitches between here and here. So you're just gonna work along that edge. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we've made it to that marker. We're going to remove the marker, and then the next section says 8. So we're going to do 8 stitches between where we're at and the next marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You should be at the halfway point between here and here now. 5, 6. You can see I'm stitching over those yarn tails because I don't want to have to weave that in, but if that's too, kind of annoying, don't worry about it. It's really okay. I think I'm at 6. Let me just count where I'm at here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There was the first 4 ones, or first 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we have 2 more stitches till we get to that marker. 1 and 2. We're going to remove the marker, and then we're going to do 7 stitches from here to that point. 1, 2, 3, 4. You should be halfway there, or a little over halfway. 5, 6, and 7. And now we're at the tip, which has a marker in it. We're going to do 3 single crochets into the very tip of the heart. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to do 7 between here and here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we've got 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we have 4 stitches from here up until we get to that marked stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we have those 2 stitches. The first one is marked, and then there's the second one, and we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into each of those stitches. So 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do 4 stitches from here to just about where that little dip is. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now here where this dip is, in order to crochet up, down and back up, I'm going to do something that is a single crochet 3 together. So that's basically a decrease stitch, and it's to keep this from getting kind of like wiggly and ruffly, like there's too much fabric in there. So we're going to insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. There's 1. Insert into that top of that stitch right in the middle. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we've got a total of 3 loops. And we're going to insert over here, just, into the side, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now there's 4 total loops on our hook, and yarn over and pull through all of them. And then we're going to do 4 stitches. Whoops, here we go. 4 stitches between where we're at and those 2 stitches that remain at the top of the heart. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets here into the top of those 2 remaining stitches, and 2 stitches here. So when I say remaining stitches, I just mean when we did those last rows at the top of the lobe, we ended up with 2 stitches left. That's what we had here. We had 2 stitches here as well. All right, and then we can go ahead and just fasten off. So I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm just going to slip stitch in the next stitch, pull it through, fasten off. Okay, so there is the front, and then we're going to do the back. So the back is exactly the same as the front, except we're going to create that little slit in the heart for the zipper. So we're going to repeat everything all the way up through row 13, which is what I have right here. So this is finishing row 13, exactly as I showed you for this. Okay, it's as if we just went all the way up through row 13 again. And then row 14, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to single crochet into the next 2 stitches, so 1 and 2. Then we're going to chain 13, and these need to be loose enough so you can actually get your hook into them later. You don't want them super loose, but just keep that in mind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's going to reach us over to the other side, and we're going to do a single crochet into each of the last 2 stitches that are left here. So 1 and 2. We're skipping 13 stitches to match up with those 13 chains, and now we're going to have a little slit there, and that's where our zipper is going to be later. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to do a single crochet into each of the next 13 chains. Ooh, this first one got a little tight. There we go. So 1, and I like to go underneath the top 2 loops here for this, but you can alternatively just go under the back loop. However you like to work into your chain is fine here. You don't have to do what I'm doing if you don't want to. It is a little bit fiddly to get underneath those top 2 loops. I like to actually turn my chain upside down so I can actually just put my hook underneath that bottom loop of the chain, that bottom horizontal dash like that. So we're just working our way across, and then we're going to finish up the heart just as we did before. Almost there. This is probably the trickiest part, is working into that chain. And there's our last chain stitch, and we have 2 single crochets at the very end of the row. Okay, so that brings us up to row 15, and row 16 is exactly the same as before. We're just chaining 1, turning our work, making a single crochet into each stitch across. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's a good idea to count that row just to make sure you have the right amount of stitches so you didn't miss one when you were working across that chain, because that's easy to do. All right, so now we're going to chain 1, and again, you've already seen this, so I'm going to maybe try to go a little quicker, but this is how we create those 2 lobes. We're going to single crochet across 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We skip a stitch, place our stitch marker. This is what I forgot to do last time. And then we chain 1 and turn and work across 1 stitch in each stitch across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to chain 1, and this is where we start our decreases. So we're going to do a single crochet 2 together, single crochet across till there's 2 stitches left, and single crochet 2 together. Chain 1, turn your work, single crochet 2 together. I'm just going really quickly here now because this is all stuff you've already seen. This is just kind of like a review, because this is exactly the same as what we did when we made the front of the heart. So here's our last 2 stitches. We put a stitch marker right there in that first of the last 2. Cut our yarn, draw it through, fasten off. And we're going to pull up yarn in that marked stitch. Pull up a loop, chain 1, doesn't count as anything. We're never going to work into that chain. And we're going to single crochet across. Should be 8 stitches here. And then we chain 1 and turn, single crochet across, 1 in each stitch. Chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to start our decreasing. So decrease, knit, or crochet 4. I said knit randomly, you guys. It's because I did a knitting tutorial earlier. I probably said crochet during that tutorial. For some reason, it's just hard for me to remember that. Okay, so again, single crochet 2 together, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, single crochet 2 together, chain 1 and turn, single crochet 2 together here, single crochet 2 together. Those are the last 2 stitches that will remain on that heart. We're not going to fasten off. Instead, we're going to work all the way around. So this is exactly the same as before. So we've got, actually, I'll mark these first so you guys can see. So again, we're kind of lining that up with that little dip in the top of our heart. That's where those 4 stitches go. I'm going to leave the one out of the tip of the heart because, I mean, I can just imagine. Okay, so we're going to do 4 stitches here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to cut that because that is something I had crocheted over already. So we're going to just get rid of it. And then before the next stitch marker, we're going to do 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then here we have 7 till we arrive at the point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 3 right in the tip. So 1, 2, and 3, and 7 to the next marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we'll remove it, and 7. And now 8 before the next marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Remove that stitch marker, and then we've got 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whoops. There we go. 4. And now we're at that stitch marker, so that's telling us, oh yeah, that's our last 2 stitches of that row. So we've got 2 stitches here, 1 and 2 in the first one, and 1 and 2 in the second one. And we have 4 stitches along here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we have that single crochet 3 together again. So we're going to pull up 3 loops. We already have 1 on our hook, and we're going to pull up 1 here, 1 right there, and 1 over here. And we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4. And then we have 4 stitches along this edge here. 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to end with 2 stitches in each of the last 2 stitches from that lobe. So 1 and 2, 1 and 2. All right, so instead of fastening off at this point, we're just going to leave this attached for now. Actually, I'm going to just place a stitch marker in here so it doesn't accidentally unravel. And then this is where we can do the chain stitch embroidery here and sew in our zipper here. So let's do, it doesn't matter which one you do first. We can go ahead and do our zipper. So if you have a zipper that's too long, I would place it behind, and you want the slide of the zipper to be just kind of tucked away into that corner right there. And then you can see where the end of this zipper is. I'm going to use a stitch marker. You can use, not a stitch marker, a marking pen, but you could use a pencil or marker, whatever you like. And that's about where I want the bottom of my zipper to be. So, or at least to unzip to. So I'm going to be taking just this is just a regular sewing needle and a piece of thread, and the thread is doubled. So I threaded it through, and both ends of my thread are right here. I'm going to tie a couple of overhand knots just to kind of get it to be a slightly larger knot. Try to tie them right on top of each other there. So however you like to tie your knots. So there's a little knot right there. And I'm going to just start by stitching around and around where I marked my zipper. So I'm going to come in from the back. I usually like to hold my zipper sideways actually for this because I'm right-handed. I mean, if you were left-handed, you could still hold it sideways and you'd be pointing your needle to your right. I'm going to be pointing my needle to the left. So I'm just going to go around and around right here, just making these stitches right on top of the teeth. Oh, my scissors wanted to get involved. And I would do, you know, I don't know, like 6 stitches or so. You want a decent amount of strength here. This is not it's not a very large bag. And the zipper doesn't unzip very far, so when you're putting things in and out of it, or you're pulling your fingers in and out, there might be a little bit of stress at the bottom of the zipper, so make sure you go around and around quite a few times. And then what I like to do is I like to hop over just 1/4 of an inch towards the bottom of the zipper and do a little stitching here as well. I think I might have a photo tutorial on this in the download. Let me just check and see. Oh, maybe I didn't. I decided that wouldn't fit. Okay. But I mean, you can always come back and watch this section of the video while it's available. So we're going to place 6 more stitches right here. And this should be nice and sturdy at this point. So this is going to basically function as the bottom stop. Of course, on my last stitch, I just got some nice thread art here. Oh gosh. Okay. Let me see if I can pull that out. That's because I was going a little too fast and it caught on my part of my finger. All right, well, in the interest of time, I'm actually just going to fasten this off below where that thread art is, pull my needle out. Of course, you can just do this at any point. And I'm gonna go ahead and just tie a knot with my fingers here instead of tying a knot with the needle. And, you know, I would do a couple of overhand knots just right in the same spot. Like that. And I'm going to cut that end. All right, so now we can put let me get rid of this tangled up thread. Oh, we have a question about the video being available so we can reference later if we get stuck. I'm going to let Jess chime in on that, but I believe it's available for a certain amount of time, and I think it's maybe, I can't remember, I'm not going to speculate, but I'm sure Jess will chime in for how long it's going to be available for everybody for free. And then it will be always available to people who are members of the knitting circle. Sorry, the Creative Crochet Corner website. I did it again, you guys. It's because I did a knitting tutorial right before this and my brain got stuck. Okay, so here I am just threading a needle with a new strand of thread that's not tangled. I'm going to make some overhand knots at the end. It's doubled. And we're going to pin this to the wrong side of our opening. So we're going to just pin this in here. Oh, I forgot. We can go ahead and cut this off at this point. So I'm going to cut it just below, to the bottom of the zipper where this is. And if you happen to have a lighter, I would recommend using your lighter to just kind of melt the end and keep it from fraying. You just kind of hold the lighter nearby, be ready to blow it out just in case it catches on fire. Every once in a while that'll happen. It's not going to do anything too crazy, but if there's a little bit burning away there, you got to just blow it out. But use your lighter to melt the end of that tape and it won't fray. I'm not too worried about it fraying because it's kind of tucked into the corner of the pouch anyway, but it's just a nice little step to do just to make sure. Okay, so you're placing your zipper. I'm going to put it this way because I really like my zipper to unzip from this side. You can do it either way, but I'm going to place the slide at the left, and I'm going to pin it from the right side. Okay, so I'm going to just place my pins just below those little, or just kind of right into those little V's from the top edge of that last row before we made the little window. Okay, so we're going to pin those in place, and I'm just going to pull up on this just a little bit because we want to get the crochet fabric away from the zipper teeth. If the zipper teeth are right next to the crochet fabric, the zipper teeth can snag the fabric and get stuck. So we do need to kind of pull that up and away so that way we're not going to be having that problem. You want it to be as close as, it looks best if it's really close to the zipper teeth, but it has to be far enough away that the zipper slide can go past it. So you just need a little bit of a gap there. And you can always test it by just opening it and closing it and just making sure that it's not getting caught. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over. Just take a look at it, make sure that everything is pinned down, okay? And I really like to start stitching like by threading my, I want my knot to be in between the zipper and the fabric, so I'm just going to tuck it in here on the side, and then I'm ready to push it through, and we're going to be looking at this side as we sew. Because what we want to do is we want to have a neat little seam here. We want to always be looking to make sure that the edge of the crochet fabric is far enough away from those zipper teeth. And you know, generally speaking, you'd be using a matching thread, but I wanted to use this dark blue thread because I thought it was important for you guys to actually see the thread as I'm stitching. So ideally, you want to come out just below those little V's of, you know, from the top edge of your crochet fabric. You don't want to be way up here, but you want to come out just below that very top edge. And I'm doing a back stitch. So this means you're going to go in, and I'm right-handed, so my needle's always pointing left. So you're going to go in one step behind, and you're going to come out 2 steps forward. So here's my little thread. It's right in the middle. So you go 1 step back here, and then we're going to go 1, 2 steps out to the front of where that is. Okay, so we're inserting our needle behind where we came out and having it come out in front of where it came out, if that makes sense. You can think about this as half steps and whole steps, or 1 step versus 2 steps. But basically it's a way to kind of go back and then take a larger step forward. So you're always moving forward, but you kind of start out by inserting your needle a little behind where you were at. And the reason I like to do the back stitch, this is called the back stitch, is because it seems to really help get those stitches closer to each other, as opposed to just going in and out and in and out. Then I feel like there's bigger gaps, and the fabric won't feel quite as sturdily attached, and it might wiggle a little bit and get in the way of those teeth, or not be as strong of a connection either. So I like to do this back stitch all the way across, and just remove those pins as you get to them. I'm going to try and go a little quicker here since we're running short on time. Okay, and I'm going to just stitch straight across. You see how my needle is just, I'm just leaping over here. Maybe I'll make 1 more stitch here. And then I'm going to go behind where I was, and I'm stitching straight across to the other side of the zipper tape. Okay. All right, so we would just continue. And on this side, we don't have 2 loops up at the top. We only have 1 because we worked into the top of our chain, but that's okay. We're just kind of leaving that 1 little bump as the edge that we're stitching just underneath that very edge. All those little horizontal bumps, we're just trying to keep our needle just below that, right on that very edge there. Oops. All right, and just because we're running short on time, I think I'm not gonna completely finish this, but you would go all the way around over here, and then you would poke your needle to the wrong side. So you would just go ahead and bring your needle to the inside. And at any point, if you need to fasten off and grab another piece of thread and start stitching again, that's perfectly fine. But once you come to the inside, then I really like to do this final round of doing a whip stitch around the edge, because it keeps the edges of the zipper in place. It makes it a little stronger. It just looks a little better. So I'm going to just make these little whip stitches like this, where you insert your needle, bring it back out like this. And when I'm going through and grabbing a little bit of that crochet fabric, I am making sure I'm not going all the way to the outside. My needle is not coming all the way out, because I don't want to see all these little threads on the outside. I just want to kind of go through the thickness of that stitch so that you don't see it from the outside. And this just kind of, it really just kind of helps it not be flapping around. It just looks a little bit more secure, feels a little more secure in place. All right, so that's what it should look like. So you'll stitch all the way around, do your whip stitch all the way around, and then your zipper will be completely installed. And then you're going to go ahead and do your embroidery. And with the embroidery, I suggest, if you're not feeling super confident about freehanding the words or letters or whatever you're putting on it, to go ahead and trace your heart onto a piece of paper, play around with the lettering on that so you have it figured out, and then you can set it right next to it and really look at it. You could divide that in half this way and this way, and then really see where those letters are ending up. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to freehand it because I've been doing a lot of these and I think it'll be okay. So I think I'm going to do the word, let's see, maybe I'll do it on this yellow so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to do the word ope, which is Minnesotan for oops, I just bumped into you. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before. I'm doing a little series of hearts for people that are very Minnesotan, which is where I live, very Minnesotan phrases. So ope, O-P-E, that just means, oop, sorry, bumped into you there. That's what we say here in these parts. So here's the P is the middle. So I start with the middle of the word usually, and then I work my way out. So there's the O. And I'm just using a wash away marker. You can use a wash away marker for this. It works great. There are my letters, and we're going to do a little bit of chain stitch embroidery. So we're just going to use our thread just single. I mean, we're not dividing, you know, if you do cross stitch or something like that, you might divide your thread into smaller sections. We're using all 6 strands together, but we're not doubling it like we were when we were sewing it. Like here's the end. We're just going to be using 1 thread at a time. And I'm going to go ahead and insert my needle from the back. And when I get pretty close to the end, I'm going to hold on to that with my finger. And then I like to go back and forth through the thickness along the path where I'm going to be stitching, but I like to just go back and forth to anchor this first before I start sewing. Because crochet is pretty thick and it'll hide that, and now it feels pretty sturdy. And now to do a chain stitch, you're going to insert your needle right next to where it came out. And you're going to take a small stitch, and you're going to make sure this thread is under the tip of your needle like this. And then when you pull it through, I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way here so you can see what I'm doing. When you pull it through, that's going to make 1 little stitch, and it's going to be basically with 2 strands of the embroidery floss. See, 1 strand here, 1 strand there. It's making a little loop or chain. Okay, so here's my next stitch. Make sure that's under your needle. And when you pull this, pull in the direction so that this can be kind of flat. That helps it helps your stitches lay flat on the surface of the fabric. I'm just going to go ahead and follow that around to make this O. Let's see. Oh, Sandra says I skipped over additional instructions shown for row 17. Let's see. On row number 17, that's where we're just working let's see. Row number 17 is just working 8 stitches. I'm not sure what your question is because I did do those 8 stitches, additional instructions, and then where you place your stitch marker. I'm a little bit unclear about what you're asking, Sandra, so if you could pop back in, I can try and get that answered for you before the end of our session here. Let's see. All right, so I'm making these a little bigger than I normally would just because of, I'm running out of time, but I want to be able to show you how to attach the pieces together and all that stuff. Okay, so we're going to just make our embroidery following those lines. And when you hop from one letter to the next letter, I usually do that. If I still have enough thread left, I usually just kind of send my needle through the thickness of the yarn when I'm looking at the wrong side. I'll try and show you that in a second here once I get around. But I don't generally fasten off in between letters. I just kind of slide my needle through the fabric and get ready to start the next letter. Okay, so if you're making a letter and it doesn't end abruptly, like the end of the P or the end of the E's, if you're actually joining something like an O here together, you can make kind of like a fake chain stitch where I came out here and I can go underneath this chain, like just sliding my needle under, like that, and then go right back down right next to where it was, and then there's no beginning or end really to that letter. Let me show you what it looks like. There, it just looks like chains going all the way around. That's it. So when you want to go over to the next letter, you can just kind of slide your needle through the thickness of your yarn till you get to about where the next letter is, and kind of find your way looking from the front out to your next letter. Okay, so you just continue making your little chain stitch embroidery letters like that. I'm going to set that aside and pick up my next sample here. So here we have, this says, oh yeah, that's another Minnesotan thing. Oh yeah. So I'm going to be putting these two pieces together, and you'll just take your little stitch marker out of that back stitch that you reserved. You're going to place your two hearts, one on top of the other, and then you're going to go ahead and just start slip stitching them together. So you're going to insert through the front and then through the fabric directly behind. Grab that yarn, pull through, and pull through. Insert, insert, pull through, pull through. So if you followed along with how many stitches were between all of those marked spaces when we were working those edging rounds, then you would have the same number of stitches from the front to the back, and you don't actually need to pin your pieces together. You can just take one stitch at a time. However, if you're newer at this and you're afraid you're not going to pay attention, if you're skipping stitches or whatever, or if you just kind of crocheted around and you didn't worry about exactly how many stitches are where, which is completely fine, then you're going to want to pin your pieces together at least at certain sections just to make sure that they really do end up matching, like the bottom of the heart, the midsection of the heart here, you know, and maybe a couple on the sides. And then you can just sort of stitch through, and it's okay if you insert your hook through the same stitch more than once, but I wouldn't skip a stitch, if that makes sense. Like if you end up with too many stitches on one edge, not enough on the other, then insert your hook through the edge where there weren't enough twice, and then you know, so that way you can kind of make it match up. All right, so you're just going to continue working your way around your heart, making those slip stitches instead of, or you know, you could sew them together. I just find this looks really neat and tidy, and to me it's a little bit faster than sewing, so I like to do the crocheting the edges together thing. And I can see that the heart on the closer to me is a little bigger than the other heart, and that's because I crocheted them at two totally different times, and I must have had a more relaxed gauge on one day than the other. But I'm not worried about it, because once I get them stitched together, even if one's just a little bigger than the other, you just can give it a little shot of steam and it'll even it all out to block it. It's gonna be fine. Blocking is great at fixing things. Let me just see if I am caught up on my questions. Let's see. Oh, Sandra said I did eventually go back and address this part. Okay, I must have forgotten to talk about some part around, oh, the adding of the stitch marker, I think. That's probably what you're talking about. Skipping a stitch, adding a stitch marker, and all that kind of stuff. Yes. Okay, thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate it when you guys notice things like that. I appreciate you guys chiming in, because I'd like to catch any mistakes or things I say, you know, As you guys have noticed, I talked about knitting at least twice now during this crochet live event. So sometimes the wrong thing comes out of my mouth and I don't realize it. So I really do appreciate it when you guys are there to be like, hey, what happened to this, Brenda? Or I don't understand what you're saying, or can you go over this part again? I do really appreciate that. You guys are keeping me from making mistakes. Or, well, I do make them, but you get me to fix them, which is good. All right, here we are almost at the end. There's our very last stitch. I'm going to fasten off and pull that through. And then, like I said before, you know, this is bubbling up just a little bit because this heart is just a little bigger on the side where the zipper is. My gauge was a little more relaxed than on the front. But if you just give it a little shot of steam, it'll stay nice and flat. Some of these were like that too, and they all look really good. Once I steam them, they all laid nice and flat. Okay, so the very last thing is attaching your little clasp. And to do that, I don't bother crocheting this until I'm ready to attach it because this little piece will just get lost. But basically, you just chain 5. So I'm going to put that slip knot on my hook and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to work into the bottom of our chain. And again, here's the top of our chain with those little V's. If you roll those over, you'll see these little horizontal dashes on the back. That's where we're going to work. So we're going to skip the first horizontal dash and make a single crochet under the second one from the hook. So there's a single crochet, and we're going to do a single crochet into the last 3. 1, 2, and 3. If you don't like working into the bottom of your chain, you don't have to. But like I said before, I really like starting out that way. If you guys have watched my tutorials, I almost always start out that way because it gives you these really nice loops on the bottom as well that match the top. And it just, I don't know, to me it's easier to go underneath that loop than to go under other loops. All right, so then you can go ahead and just cut your yarn, fasten off and bring that through. And then we're going to thread this through the little loop at the bottom of our chain, or clasp rather. And you're gonna match up the 2 little tiny short ends. Okay, so you're just gonna bend it around there and hold those together. I'm gonna use a yarn needle, and I'm using a yarn needle with a sharp tip, which I really like using for this, but you can certainly use a blunt end needle as well. That is just fine. And I'm gonna do a couple little whip stitches here where I'm just stitching through both surfaces first. It's just such a tiny little thing we're sewing, but it really does help if you get those anchored together first before you sew them onto your pouch. Okay, so those are attached to each other. And now we're gonna go ahead and actually I'm gonna weave in this little yarn tail because this is in my way. The yarn tail can kind of tell you where to put the clasp. I mean, obviously you can put it anywhere you like, but I put it right next to this little spot, or right on top of that little spot, because it kind of hides that bump that you get when you fasten off, and it just gave me a place to make it the same on each of the pouches without having to mark anything. So that seemed very easy for me to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and weave that in, and now I'm going to take these yarn tails and sew it to my bag. Let's see. Oh, someone is saying this is the easiest way to do the surface chain for me personally. I tried using a small crochet hook, but it was a little more difficult. I see, yeah. To do a surface chain, which would be like a crochet stitch, for those of you who have never done that before, it gives you basically the same thing you're looking at here, except you're piercing through with a crochet hook, and just adding that chain detail. And for certain projects that works really great, and for me it can be faster sometimes than doing the embroidery stitch, but for something this small, and this precise, you need to really, I just feel like since you're making letters, it just really helps to do the embroidery stitch style instead of using surface crochet, especially since your fabric is fairly bulky and it's got lots of bumps in it, and you're making these delicate little little letters, it's just going to be easier, I feel like, to do it this way. But you know, for some people, doing the surface crochet might be easier, so it's something to try if you're having difficulty doing the embroidery style. But that was a good point, though. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so you're just doing this little whip stitch a bunch of times. And then I'm going to go ahead and just weave in my end, and I like to just sort of pierce through the thickness of the edge of my piece. And I really like to go back and forth in 2 directions just to make sure it's very, very much anchored. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm not going to go through it as many times because I really did a lot of stitching there. But this is the point where, you know, everything's hanging off of there. It's probably going to get snagged on something. You know, you just want it to be as sturdy as you can make it. All right, that's probably enough. And then I'm going to go ahead and just weave that in. All right. And I'll cut that off. And that completes our project. So here's our little zipper that opens up. We got our little clasp on there. Got the embroidery. It's looking so cute. I would just give it a little shot of steam to make it lay flat, and that's it. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that this was a fun project for you. I hope that you guys make some of these for your loved ones. And I hope you guys really have a great Valentine's Day. Thanks so much for being here and for showing up in the comments so much. It's always so nice for me to see you guys in there. It really makes me feel like we're crocheting together, which is just an awesome thing. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.